Uh, so this is my Teach Me You Did video. Let me clean up my camera just a little bit so it's not so. Maybe that's a little better. I want to talk about some of the teachers that have put me on my path to writing and have really given me um, the tools I needed to actually become a writer. Um, and the first one actually goes back to my fifth grade teacher, a guy named Greg Bach, who was he'd been a baseball player, I think, in the minor leagues, but it was in fifth grade, and he was the first one that actually taught me how to um, write an essay. I still have all the reports I had to write in his class, but really I learned by fifth grade that 5 paragraph essay format, and it was his encouragement for writing that got me through to do. Um, I did a competition like the fifth grade like Scholastic Olympics or whatever they were, and took the creative writing one, which is the first bit of creative writing I ever remember doing. Um, and it was we were given a writing prompt, and we had to come up with something for it. And I chose the prompt I chose had to be to describe what it was like parachuting out of an airplane. And obviously, by fifth grade, I'd never ever parachuted out of an airplane, so I didn't know what that was like, but I had to make it up, and I found that I really loved making it up, and that was I won a silver medal in those like Scholastic Olympics, and it was really due to the influence of that teacher that made that difference and kind of gave me that thirst for it. And um, I went through school sixth, seventh, eighth grade was my first creative writing class, and that was the class that really I'd known that I was capable of doing creative writing, but it wasn't until I used my one elective in eighth grade to take a creative writing class with Pat Garrett. She was not the person who shot Billy the Kid, but she was probably one of the best teachers I ever had, and I ended up taking her creative writing class in eighth grade. She was in charge of the newspaper, and she's what inspired me to be on the newspaper staff through ninth grade. I was in her creative writing class for my junior and senior year, and I took them. Uh, I took I like I or my no, it was just my junior year, and I took them like the whole year. I just needed to be in creative writing classes. There really wasn't any two ways about it, but she sort of believed in me in a way that no other teacher really had taken an interest at that point. She, her and I still talk occasionally. Um, she was just great and understanding, and it was amazing that the sort of stuff I was writing in eighth grade was all it was all the stuff that I was writing. It was like based on my it was based on my old like role playing games. So like it was stories about mutant animals getting in adventures and mutant animals doing this and fighting, going back in time and fighting Hitler, which is kind of the stuff we were super interested in our role playing games. And I was writing stories based on these. I was writing Star Wars fan fiction too in eighth grade. I tried to write a novel um, that was terrible through eighth and ninth grade. It was called Bounty Hunter Run, and it was it was about like all of the major heroes of the rebellion getting stranded on a planet without ships. Everyone from Han, Luke, Leia, Lando, Chewie, Wedge, Jaina and Jason Solo, and Boba Fett is on the planet coming to coming to get them. It was the worst. it was the worst, but it got me writing, and Mrs. Garrett at the time encouraged the hell out of me for that. And where my interests ran completely counter to hers, I could never tell, and I didn't realize how important that was until I had a teacher in ninth grade who would send me to detention for writing about the sorts of stuff I wanted to write about, which I didn't think was very nice. I was super interested. I wanted to be in class and I wanted to learn what she could teach me, but she was not interested in the stories that I wanted to write at that time, and I didn't realize how much the influence of the other teacher was. But through the years, like she helped just foster that interest in writing in a way that I didn't think was possible. Because I was told like you need to be a lawyer, and um, that I mean I could still see myself being a lawyer, but I'd have more fun being a writer. And it was Mrs. Garrett that had pushed me in that direction um, over the years. And the last teacher that I had in school was my English teacher in my senior year of high school, and his name was Scott Willis, and he's still someone I'm absolutely friends with. He sings in a rockabilly band that I absolutely adore, and it was interesting, this interesting rite of passage, between high school and turning 21 to actually see him performing in one of his shows. But he's the one who introduced me to Kurt Vonnegut. He helped set the tastes that I had for much of the literature that I was interested in. He's the one who started a banned book club, and as a high school student, there especially a high school student in a very religiously dominated area, for a student who was not interested in religion whatsoever, um, to be given a class that you know that seemed to speak against everything in the area. Um, it was really alluring, and so I took it, and that was when I first read Kurt Vonnegut. It was when I first read Ray Bradbury. It was when I first read who else did we read? Like George Orwell. It was just all kinds of like it hit me exactly the right time. I became a lifelong fan of Vonnegut. I became a lifelong fan of so many of the writers that I read in that class, and it helped shape my sensibilities. And it's weird how teachers through the years can not only help set your tastes and govern what it is you're interested in, um, but it it's just it was exactly what I needed. Um, the uh, the next set of teachers I had that kind of helped me take that next leap into writing were Mike Stackpole and Aaron Alston. Um, I got introduced to them at conventions, and I loved their X-Wing books. Um, the X-Wing books were like some of the best books I'd ever read. Um, I really loved the work they'd done with X-Wing and the Wraith Squadron and stuff. And so meeting them, it was otherworldly. It was just bizarre. Um, and having them encourage me to say like, "Hey, you should be writing." Mike is the person who sort of pushed me into, um, and I say pushed, but pushed me gently into self-publishing my first book, which was Lost at the Con. Um, he had heard the concept of it, and said it's about a drunken political journalist who's assigned to cover a nerd convention, and against their will. And he said, you're probably not going to find a publisher for that. Not because it's not good, but because that doesn't fit neatly on a shelf somewhere. So why don't you put that out yourself? And if you put it out yourself, I'll get you on as a guest at Origins Game Fair. And this was for my first year at Origins Game Fair. And, that really motivated me in a way I didn't quite know I could be motivated in. And then Janine Spendlove, who, if any of you are into Star Wars, who's not into Star Wars, she's since written. She wrote the Star Wars Insider short story tie-in to Battlefront, and she's the one who introduced me to these two. Um, had created like a writing group in her area, but she didn't want just local writers. She wanted to like handpick everyone, and Erin was in that group, and she asked me to come. And um, Erin's work in helping me shape that book was completely invaluable. Erin, um, it was weird. He was someone I'd idolized as a Star Wars author, and he never once made me feel like um, we weren't peers. He made me feel like a colleague even before I'd ever published anything in prose. And that was something that was really, really um, magical for me. Like it was mind blowing and incredible. And he helped me shape that first book into something that was publishable. And I went and did that first convention with him and Mike. And they introduced me to Tim Zahn, and their guidance. I can't overstate enough that I wouldn't be sitting here talking about writing or pursuing writing at all without those guys. And Aaron kept doing that through the years, up to the point where um, the Serpent's Head, which is my third novel that was published. Um, Aaron had taken the time, even when I thought like I don't have anything to offer Aaron. Um, I'm writing about Star Wars and stuff, but it's not like he needs publicity. There's nothing I can really offer him other than friendship. And he was interested enough in me as a student and as a person to really help me um, shape what my novels could be, and to shape me as a writer, and to make it so that my stuff would be saleable. And he made me rewrite the Serpent's Head. He made me rewrite the Serpent's Head um, like twice, and that was exactly what I needed. That book needed those rewrites, and that book is far better because of it. But he was a strong enough teacher to be able to say, like, you you have the ideas right. You just need to take it a step further. And then when I'd done that and brought it back to him, I took it one more step further, and he said I hadn't gone far enough. And really, everything that really shaped that book came from having a teacher as great as Aaron and Mike. And those are some of the teachers that meant absolutely the most to me through my years. There were other teachers. Um, there was a history teacher I'll never forget that I learned so much in his class, but I was that screw up who never turned in my assignments. I always knew the answer. I always knew what was going on. I always paid attention in his class, but I just couldn't get the assignments together. I always passed the tests and figured that should have been good enough. Wasn't that a better indication of what I'd learned, being able to pass the knowledge tests, than having to do the busy work? And I didn't realize it was trying to teach me some sort of responsibility, and it's stuff that now I understand it because I have to work on deadlines. But I remember a few years after I'd taken his class, I was hanging out with Scott Willis, my teacher, and I think it was maybe a couple of years after I'd graduated, because he'd asked me to come in and sort of speak to his classes or help show people in classes what they could do. And I'd seen this other teacher passing by, and I said, that guy, that was probably one of the best history teachers I ever had. And, the conversation sort of ended there. And a few weeks later, I was talking to Scott again, and he said, "Yeah, I told that teacher that you said he was one of the best teachers you ever had, but he couldn't figure out why, because he failed you." And I had to explain to him, like, just because I got a failing grade didn't mean that he didn't teach me anything. He was so passionate about everything he taught, about American history, about world history, about the Civil War, about World War I, World War II, and he came to class telling stories that I didn't learn anything from the bookwork he made us do. I learned because he was a great storyteller and engaged us. And it didn't matter that I didn't pass his class. I learned that much from him. Um, and he was sort of blown away by that, because especially when you're in high school, I imagine people don't yeah, I imagine people don't say like, yeah, you were the best teacher I ever had, even though, you know, you flunked. Um, so I mean, those are sort of the quick 15-minute version of my stories. Uh, there's a few of you out there. I'd be happy to answer any questions if you have any, but if not, I'd be, uh, I think we're good. I'll wait a second for any questions in case you guys are typing. It doesn't seem like there's any. Okay. Well, we'll call it good then. Thank you all for watching and checking it out, and we'll do some of these later, and I'll tackle some writing. Yeah, post the question right here. Just write it there. I'll see it. But I will be doing more of these in the future. I'll tackle some writing subjects, and we'll talk about stuff. We'll ask questions if you want me to continue talking. Don't just say more. What would you like more of? Anyone? No, I think teachers are important. I think that's part of why um, I'm so interested in helping mentor people um, as often as I can, not because I'm going to get anything out of it, but because I think that that's an important role. So the question is, so how do you know if the story idea you have is good? Um, for me, I know a story idea is good if it sticks with me. If I can't get rid of it, if I write it down, but I keep thinking about it and keep thinking about it, and it keeps coming back to me, and you know, I've got notebook after notebook after notebook filled with ideas, with like writing ideas and things like that. But once I write them down, a lot of times I'll just forget about them. And sometimes I'll thumb through those ideas and say, oh, I can combine this with another idea and it'll work out. But it's the ideas that really, really work on me and nag at me and kind of beg me to write them that I know the story idea is good. And sometimes I don't let that lie dormant very long. Sometimes I just jump right into it. The book I'm writing now, I'm almost done with it. I'm about 57,000 words into it, and I'm almost done with it. And it was just sort of like, I think I need to write a book, and this is the idea for the character I want, and here's the situation. And then I started writing the next day, and I've been trying to find pieces of the story based on that rough outline because it was so rough from day one. But it's been a hard book to write, but it's been fun, and I think it's going to turn out well. Um, do I have images in my head that I need to get in the story? A lot of times, yeah. A lot of times I will not start a piece unless I have very distinct images and I know what the beginning is going to be and I know what the ending is going to be. Because I feel like it's really hard to decide what the beginning of a story is going to be without an idea of what the ending is going to be, because you're aiming toward that spot. And sometimes there are very specific images that you want in your head. The book I'm working on now, I wanted that feeling of like Casablanca with Humphrey Bogart and sort of that washed up character, but I wanted that to be a woman. Like, what would the female equivalent of that be like? What would a noir story be like with the femme fatale as the private investigator, and what would that look like in space? Um, and so those are the sorts of images that I get in my head. And sometimes the ideas I have are just questions like, what would that look like and would that be interesting? And sometimes that's enough to just write. Um, so yeah, we're at 20 minutes, and I gotta run. I hear a baby crying, but thank you guys for checking this out, and we'll do this again really quickly. Am I afraid of being too close to an established story? No, I'm not, because even if I wrote an outline for a story and handed it to five different people, it's going to be a different story no matter what. And I've been doing the cinema behind Star Wars column for so long on StarWars.com that I know that you have to take the influences and the things that rattle around in your head, and put those down on the page. Um, and no two people are going to do it the same. So I'm not worried about that. And if it does get too close to a different story, then I can just revise it. There's nothing wrong with revising. So thank you, everyone, and we'll do this again soon.